We are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. You're watching Test Containers Live. This is Alexa Live. And today we have a very, very interesting episode. Our guest today is Gerald Venzl. Gerald is the Senior Director, Product Director, Senior Director of Product Management for Oracle. I butchered that a little bit, but I hope it's all right. Hi, Gerald. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thanks, Oleg. How are you?
I am fine. I'm very excited about this session. We're going to talk about, of course, Oracle database. We're going to talk about some tests. We're going to talk about what's new, approaches, and so on. So join. If you are in the chat, you can say hello currently, or you can ask your questions. I'm sure Gerald will be happy to answer most of them. Technical questions in the chat.
We actually joined the chat, as a matter of fact.
So Oracle is a like sort of a powerhouse, and the of course the sort of one of the cornerstones of the database technologies for the last, I don't know, 50 years, right? So can you tell us a little bit about maybe your role, like what are you doing at Oracle? How I'm in a startup. I was before at Oracle Labs, but I forgot everything, and I'm sure very many people would be interested. Like, what does a senior director mean? Do you still code a little bit? Are you hands-on? Do you have people to update your LinkedIn profile because you were like such a big boss?
I wish. No, so senior director is just one of the many titles in Oracle. It's not very high up. Well, I would say it's not very high up. Hopefully I have no colleagues on there with a similar title feeling different. So I'm basically, in a nutshell, I'm a product manager who has been given a couple of people at some point in time. So really my career was from that level on in Oracle. Actually started out in pre-sales, then moved back into development, was a product manager, and then eventually I now have a great team actually, of a couple of really, really good people. Some of them are very well known in the Java community as well. And so that's where the senior director comes from.
Excellent.
I always see myself as a product manager / still developer. Do I still code? Fortunately, with the senior director title, my coding has gotten very little, unless you see PowerPoints and emails as coding, which obviously it's not. That's most of my days now. But I still write some code. I actually write most of the code in my free time now, and I have a couple of open source projects. And I mean, one obviously is this container image for Oracle Free and Oracle XE that is used by Testcontainers. That's actually stuff that I do in my free time to keep, to not get rusty.
Oh, excellent. No, I feel you. I feel you. As a developer advocate, I don't code day in to day as well, but it is a large chunk of the job description to know things and be hands-on. So you work mostly on the database team for the Oracle database.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So can you give us a little, maybe high-level overview? What are the current sort of new things? You mentioned the Testcontainers module. We'll get to that. But like, what are the current themes for what is happening with the Oracle database? What are the kind of sort of high-level new innovations, trends, maybe this year or last couple of years, to get everyone on the same page?
Certainly. We're actually at a very interesting point in time right now, because we're about to release, or just have released, depending whether you use Oracle Cloud or not, the new version of Oracle Database, which is also the next long-term support version. That's Oracle Database 23C. The 23 stands for the year 2023. And that, will be the next long-term support version. That doesn't happen so often for us. We don't release yearly, but only every couple of years. So the current long-term support version is 19C 2019. So you see there's a 4-year gap in between. Not that there haven't been other releases, but it's an exciting one, because we know this will be basically the next version that customers will run for the foreseeable future, because it's the next long-term support release. And for me personally, really exciting is that with that release in particular, we have put the attention back to developers a lot. I mean, we always had the attention to developers, but for people who have used 10G, 11G, there was a lot of work done for operations automation, make the database smarter to allow things like moving data around online, adding tables, changing tables online, etc. All that good stuff. It's mostly for like, I would say, DBA work to make their lives easier. But with 23C, we have when we planned it all out, 2020 back then, because 19C was the last version, right? We said basically like, look, I think I can say that. I mean, we sort of have neglected the developers using the database, right? It's like, what can we actually do to make it easier for developers to use the database? And that resulted in many different things. So it's like from new SQL functionality to long overdue SQL functionality, but to the highlights, as you said, what are the highlights? I want to say I think that has actually been brought up in one of your webcasts before. We have a new feature called JSON duality views, or JSON relational duality, which essentially allows you to put mapping of relational tables to JSON objects directly in the Oracle database. So you can send and retrieve JSON objects from the Oracle database. And it itself will basically do the ORM mapping for you to the tables. So that seems very exciting in the world of microservices. Everybody we talk to right now, they love this idea. And then, of course, like every database right now in the last couple of 3 months or so, everybody's working on AI, right? So vector data type, vector support, AI support. So it's like that was not the original plan in 2020, right? It's like that only came up a couple of months ago. But yeah, those are the two big highlights. But there's so much more packed into 23C that makes me personally really proud, because we've also delivered things that are long overdue. Like the simplest would be the Boolean data type. It's now there, right? It's like something we should have honestly done 20 years ago. But there were reasons why it never happened, but now it happened. So there's a lot in there.
Right. So AI stuff aside, I'm very interested in the JSON duality view. Do I understand correctly, right? My data is still normalized in the relational tables, but I can query it as a document store to get just the JSON output.
Yeah, actually, yeah. That's the simple part, and technically you could do this already in 19C as well. JSON support itself has been in there for a couple of years, so you could write a SQL query that spits out JSON, similar how you could write a SQL query to spit out XML in the good old days when that was still popular. The interesting part is actually the opposite. You can send a JSON document back to the database, to this duality view, and say, please update my duality view with this JSON document. And it will look at the mapping that you have defined in this view and basically update the corresponding tables. And so the really interesting part is it doesn't update just like, let's say you have a duality view that joins 5 tables. The JSON object is a hierarchy of 5, right? It will not just update all 5 blindly and go like, yeah, this is all now updated regardless whether something changed or not. No, it's actually smart enough to go like, oh yeah, this attribute changed. So that means an update on that table for that column. And so that is actually something where you, for example, wouldn't even necessarily have that much support in document stores. So some that have binary format representation could partially update documents, but even then have to rewrite certain parts again. For us, it's like just like really whatever bytes changed, you can update. And that's sort of really, really nice, because that is also done on top of the full ACID compliance, consistent reads, etc., all the good stuff that make relational databases still being around for 40 years, which in itself is actually, when you think about it, an interesting feat. But you get all of that as well. So, right, so it's like you get, that's what we kind of that's why we call it JSON relational duality. You get the both of best worlds, right? So it's like you just interact like this was any other document store, and it just, or microservice for that matter, that your payload is JSON, right? You can send this and retrieve this via REST. But you get all the goodies from the relational world. And likewise, if somebody were to update the same table relationally or via another duality view, you get the ACID transaction guarantees. So no overwriting of data, no inconsistent data, no eventual consistency, etc., etc. So that's what customers are really excited about.
Yeah. It's like one tool that does it all really, really well. Like I'd be excited as well. We have a question, and that actually corresponds to the sort of the next topic that I wanted to start discussing is Stake Zero is saying that we use Oracle 19c in production and very much need the Oracle database for local development. But the current Oracle Docker image is 17 gigabytes inside. What went wrong?
What could do wrong? Yeah.
And you mentioned, well, we if you know anything, like if you want to talk about Oracle 19c, but you also mentioned that in Oracle 23, right, a lot of focus was on application developers and the local development experience. So maybe you can answer with the newer stuff first, and then give some pointers for the Oracle 19 users.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the newer stuff is the one thing that makes me actually most proud, and or has made me most proud of this year, is that we've done something that we've never done before. From what I ask my bosses who have been around since the 80s, we have released a new version of Oracle database for the developers first. So we introduced a new Oracle database variant or flavor or edition, however you want to call it. It's called Oracle Database Free. It's essentially a successor to Oracle Database XE or Express Edition for those people that know it. But we did two things there. So or three, I guess. So one, we sort of renamed Oracle Database XE to Free. So Free is the successor to XE. So don't look for an XE version anymore. Free is for you where you want to go. For those of you who know XE, what is it? It's a free-to-use Oracle database. It's like it comes under this free use terms and condition license. Basically, you can download it straight from the web. You can use it for whatever you see fit. The only caveats are it's not eligible for any support, so you cannot file any support tickets. You cannot get any patches for it. And it itself restrains itself to resources. So there's some resource restrictions in there. It can only grow for that big, right? So it's like 2 CPUs that you can run, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 12 gigabytes of storage that you can have. So it's perfect for anybody who wants to test or develop locally, but also for people. There's actually people out there who run websites off that, right? Something that's tiny. The important part here was like, it's kind of, it doesn't have, you can download it straight from the web. We used to have this click-through stuff that prevented any sort of automation. You can download it straight from the web. It's free to use. If any Oracle person ever comes to you and says you have to pay for this, email me, first name dot last name at oracle.com. Nobody will ever be able to charge you for that. We made sure of that. The other thing, the exciting part was that we said, hey, you know what? We kind of have this sort of the wrong way around. It's like in the good old days, when we say good old days, we have released Enterprise Edition to our customers first. Right? So go back 20 years ago, everybody was eager for the next version of Oracle Database. Our customers, foremost and center, they were like, hey, I need my next Oracle Database version. So we have released Enterprise Edition. And then actually all the other editions, including XE, kind of were like sort of like, yeah, they come afterwards, right? First, we please our customers. That worked out great until, I want to say, the last couple of years, right? Now we actually find ourselves in a situation where our customers cannot necessarily move fast enough. They're not necessarily upgrading right away when we release the new version. And so what we find ourselves in is like that we end up in a situation where customers were to upgrade to the next version of Oracle Database maybe a year after it has been released, which then triggers the demand for applications to actually start looking into functionality that has come in that release. And we said this is sort of the wrong way around. It's like by the time applications support the great functionality that we have, it's like it's 2-3 years down the road. Let's turn this around. Let's actually release it to the developers first. Right? Those are the guys who actually should start looking first into the features and functionalities. They should get a head start, right? They have now this time of saying like, hey, now I can educate myself with all the new things that are in Oracle Database. And I can start adding that support to it so that by the time Enterprise Edition comes out and our enterprise customers upgrade to it, your application is ready to go, right? So it's like that's literally where we are right now. So what made me most proud was that we released 23C for developers first, and Oracle Database 23C free developer release, it was called, specifically developer release. It was in April this year. And then 23C went GA on Oracle Cloud. And just 2 months ago, I think, or a month ago at Cloud World. So like developers got like this half year, and then Enterprise Edition is scheduled for later. So developers still have some time to have developers still have a head start to implement the functionality in their apps before their customers actually raise the demand for that functionality to be added, if that makes sense.
Right. And then of course, like so Oracle Free Image and then Oracle Enterprise edition, and then the cloud version of Autonomous Database, those are like compatible implementations. So if my application
Yes.
works with one of them, I can reasonably consider that my application will also work with the other providers, right?
Right. Yes. So actually, you mentioned something I didn't elaborate anymore on before, if you allow me. It's that the third big thing that we changed was like Express Edition in the past was actually a slimmed down version of Oracle Database, didn't support all functionality, etc. It goes back literally 20 years ago, came out in 2004, the first one or so. So it was like the kind of, get your feet wet kind of a foot in the door, etc. thing. We changed this all with 18c XE and 21XE and now Oracle Database Free. It's a fully compatible Enterprise Edition version. So it's basically the way I always describe it. It's like it's a single instance resource constrained Enterprise Edition free to use. So anything you build on Oracle Database Free will run, as you said, anywhere else in the cloud and Enterprise Edition will all be there. So it has this compatibility upwards, and it's the same product as well. It's just really what's there is this resource restrictions that we put in place. And they're all done automatically, so you don't have to worry about that.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. So now your recommended approach to like sort of work locally with the Oracle database would be for developers, right? To get the Oracle free instance running and install it locally over my container and just use that.
Yeah, so specifically to the question that we had in chat is like, right, so the answer would be, you should download either 21c Express Edition if you wish to, or if you want the latest and greatest as Oracle Database Free, that's certainly what I would prefer. So what happened with 19c, there's actually no 19c XE, and the Enterprise Edition image that is up there, because the Enterprise Edition is quite big, right? So Oracle Database has a lot of different functionalities baked in, right? We have a Java JVM inside it. We have machine learning algorithms with it. It comes with its own REST server. That's all sort of packed together in Enterprise Edition, so that for enterprise users who have terabytes and terabytes of databases, they have just all this functionality available without having to kind of restart the database or add an additional module, etc. And so unfortunately, if there are users out there who say, hey, we're using 19c in production, so I won't really want to test against the 19c database. For those users, unfortunately, today, there's no really good answer other than use the 19c Enterprise Edition image from Oracle's container registry, and it will be bigger. And you just have to deal with that because there is no 19c XE. But for anybody who says, hey, I would like to have a local Oracle database to develop against, it's like whether I write new applications or just want to be able to run my regression suite locally, etc. Oracle Database has always been very backward compatible. It's actually a fun story we can talk about one day, what that all means. But basically, anything that runs on 19c today will also work in Oracle Database 23c free. So you can therefore use Oracle Database 23c free on your local environment and develop against that one. The only thing you will have to watch out for is obviously if you still run on 19c, you don't want to start using functionality that's new in 23c. And even that will be easily spottable in the documentation, whether that's new functionality in 23c or not.
Right. Okay. That's fair. I think that is fair. If you can upgrade, it's usually always a good idea to upgrade anyhow. Right. So how do I test my applications against the Oracle free image? We all know that the best way to test your applications against real service dependencies is Testcontainers libraries, of course.
Right.
And then can you maybe talk a little bit about, I know that there is a module for Testcontainers that works with Oracle databases. In the past, it was doing the Oracle Express Edition.
Right.
And then we always have a lot of questions about like, what are those Docker images? Is that module sort of recommended? Is it because like it's also published, the instructions that we have are using the Docker images that are by your name, right?
Right.
On your Docker Hub count. So people are like, is this just a random Gerald trying to circumvent the big bad corporation, or like is it something that people should be using, and so on? So
Yeah, it's a super question, a super good question, and absolute fair question, right? So it's like, so why is this a Gerald Docker image and not an Oracle Docker image? So the whole story starts out with that I myself wanted a Docker image for, as I mentioned before, I still code quite a bit in my free time, right? And so I was like, okay, I need to write some GitHub actions to test the stuff out. I no longer want to do this manually on my laptop, so I need a Docker image to run my tests against. And I think GitHub Actions has some size restrictions on the free runners or something. So I was like, the question we had in chat is like, well, 17 gigabytes is not good enough for this. So I started building this Docker image, and basically I had the liberty to go, because Oracle database free is not supported, not patchable. I basically just went in there and I tossed everything away I thought people wouldn't necessarily need and use, right? And when I say people, it's like what I didn't need and use, right? And very quickly I moved on to like, okay, well, I should probably offer a Docker image as is, right? So as it comes by Oracle. So one of the nice things about Oracle Database Free of this license, by the way, is like you're allowed to redistribute, right? So it's like when you read through the free use terms and conditions, that was actually the precursor for me why I'm able to do this, right? So it's like anybody can redistribute this. You can't just not charge any money for it. It has to remain free. And so that's fair, right? Oracle gives it to you for free, so you shouldn't make any money out of it. So yeah, I went ahead and I started building these images. And then actually something interesting happened. Maybe you recall better than me, but the images took off. And I think this was 2021, right? And I definitely know now the case is still like the images are quite popular thanks through Testcontainers. I don't know who actually wrote the original Oracle XE module and started using my original XE container image. But it's certainly like, well, what I see is like most of the downloads happen through, for both free and the old XE, happen through Testcontainers, right? And so I got obviously very interested. And by now it's like, to answer your immediate question, right? It's like, so obviously I think, do we have time for the big announcement now? When do you want to do the announcement? I actually don't know.
No, we are talking about it now, so like.
Right. So, I mean, the big news since yesterday or last night, for anybody who follows me on Twitter, right? Since yesterday, thanks to the Testcontainers team and Edo in particular, we have an Oracle Database Free module. Ta-da! It's there, right? It's like, and I literally came this morning and updated my version and, tried to recompile and it worked. So that's great. So it's like we have an Oracle Database Free module now that I look after as well from my private aspect. And then there's the original Oracle Database XE module that uses my other image. So that's the big announcement. Oracle Database Free Testcontainers image is out there now for Java. So go and use it. We can show you later how it's done. Compatible with the previous XE image. So all you really have to do is just change, 2-3 lines of code. Super proud of that. Super happy. I mean, again, like, I know Edo is listening in, so Edo, thanks a lot. it's like that you pulled this off in the last, couple of days was amazing. But yeah, so should people use it or not? So what has happened internally is actually that even my guys were like, so I brought this up right internally and said, hey, we should just offer this image for everybody. And meaning like Oracle should just take what I've done and push it out there. And something very interesting happened. I brought this all the way up to my superiors. Basically my big boss, and he was like, dude, just keep doing what you're doing. It's like, we back you, just keep doing what you're doing. This is great. If we were to kind of change this all now, we would kind of have to convince everybody, hey, now you should use that image again, and then you have to go in and change all your tests, etc. And I basically got the sanction to keep doing what I'm doing with this image, and it's basically has become the de facto image to use when you want an Oracle database in a Docker container. Now, there are the exciting thing that my colleagues are doing, and I'm involved with them as well. So it's like everybody's on the same page here, etc. Internally, is actually the the work that has happened for our enterprise customers was more to do with like, hey, look, we are running Oracle database 19 dot some patch version in production. We want to test exactly against that patched version. Well, Oracle Database 3 cannot give you that because there are no patches. And in general, Oracle will also not just plaster patched versions of the software. Well, I shouldn't say that. So in order to get an patched Oracle database version, you basically have to have a support contract. That's what it is. There's plenty of software out there from Oracle where you get patched versions, no issue. But for Oracle database, basically you have to be a support customer. And they have invested their time into container registry to be able for customers now to pull these patched images down. So like if you're a 19C customer and you run a 19C in production, you can now get these patched Oracle Database 19C images as well to run against your test suite, etc. So that's great stuff that they have done. But yeah, I mean, for these images, it's like, it's a random name, right? G. Venzl out there. But it happens to be that this guy actually is an Oracle Database product manager. And I'm super happy with what's happening. The community really takes it up a lot. I feel also that, and this is just my personal perception of what I've seen, I think people are actually somewhat less reluctant to use an image by a random dude on Docker Hub than it would perhaps be with an Oracle official image. I don't know. I certainly like it puts the spotlight on me. So, and if there ever were to be an image, I'm the buffer, so nobody will ever chase any of these users of these images, right? If that ever were to happen, they will come to me, and guess what? I will be like, okay, let's pick up the work phone and talk this out, right? So I think that gives some assurance as well. But I mean,
I hear you.
Yeah.
And well, like from my time with Oracle and my experience is, I know that if people didn't prevent you and stop you from doing this, the second it went up, it means that it's a good thing, and this is something that you can trust because or in my experience at least, Oracle definitely holds Oracle employees to the highest level of standard for compatibility and like sort of distribution excellence and compliance. So
yeah, I mean, I've learned over the years that copyright infringement and stuff like that is real one way or another. It will happen actually much more often than you would think, right? So unfortunately, that's not going to go away in this industry. But so here's the other thing that it's like, I was the guy who, like, literally the guy who sat down with legal and put this Oracle Database free indexee under the free use terms and condition, who cross-checked and triple-crossed every T and dotted every I 5 times. It was like, I know this is free to use because I pushed this case forward, and it's like I have these contacts from my counterparts who all have said, yes, this is good to go. Right. And so, like, I know here what I'm doing. It's like, and if somebody were to come and say, hey, you're doing this is not right. It's like, I was the guy who put it together. So it's like, let's have this conversation because I know 100% that this is all good. And so that's why nobody ever stopped me, right? Because from the get-go, it's like, it's the same guy behind it, sort of. So I knew that this was all fine. And nobody ever came and said, this is not fine. It is fine. This is exactly what we wanted. And anybody who reads this free use terms and conditions license, it's exactly what it says, right? It's like, there's only 2 things you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to disassemble it and steal any IP. That's international copyright law, period. So this is where some interesting copyright discussions come in, right? So you cannot just go from somebody else and copy paste their code or their book or whatever it may be, right? And you cannot charge any money of it, right? So it's like you cannot go there, I take this free thing and now charge my customers money for it. That's in a nutshell it.
Okay. Perfect. You are fighting a good battle, so thank you for doing that. Right. I think now it's. Can you maybe show how it works?
There's one question in chat, by the way. Do you want to quickly answer that one and then move on to that, or do you want
to? Well,
up to you.
Okay. Since you're bringing it up, Alex Andrew is asking, waiting for Oracle images for ARM because Kalima workaround is too slow. I assume you're on a Mac OS, Alex Andrew. This is about the flavors of the images that are available. You can answer maybe this one now, or we're going to talk about the flavors in a little bit anyhow, so maybe we can take it all together.
Yeah, I mean, just very quick, so that's out of the way that Alexandra got his answer. So we are working on porting Oracle database to ARM, right? That thing has to happen first. ARM is obviously a very popular architecture now. We know that, as you know, I'm speaking on behalf of Oracle, right? So we know that we have started the porting efforts for ARM. So there's like a 19C ARM port out there, and there's also the plan for 23C. But so it will unfortunately just take a little bit longer until we are getting the release out. But it's high on our radar. We know the issues right now. But neither Colima nor Rosetta seems to work very well, either performance-wise or it may even crash us. So unfortunately, that is not there. So we know of the issue and we are working on it, and it will be there soon. But it will still take a while. So just to get that out of the way.
I have another workaround that I can show later, but we'll get to
Yes, that's true, you do.
right. Okay, no, let's look at the Testcontainers and Oracle free integration. You are sharing your IDE here.
Yes, right. So IntelliJ here. So
take me through this.
All right. So yeah, so what we're doing here is like I have maybe let's start here real quick. So we have a tiny little application, doesn't do much. It's kind of, it has like, we have an Oracle DB store that allows me to insert the country into a countries table. And yes, I use plain vanilla JDBC here just to let you see what's happening. So it's like just a method for inserting the data and for getting a country back from the table. And that's it, really. There's nothing else in here. And we would like to test this out, right? And as you said before, Oleg, we would like to, the best way to test this is with real dependencies. So in order to do this, we have a unit test here, JUnit 5 test, where we have a new Oracle container from Testcontainers, where we use this Oracle free slim fast that image. And as part of that image, of the Docker image, we also create a new user called test user with a new password, super secure, and copy a setup file in there. So there's already a couple of things that are happening there. Let me go through one by one, right? So it's like, number one, here we tell the Oracle container class to use this Docker image Venzl Oracle free slim fast start. And I come back to this variation of flavors when we have spun up this test. Then what we're going to do is like, it's super bad practice in database land to test with the admin user. It doesn't matter whether it's Postgres, MySQL, Oracle. Never test with the, MySQL root user, Oracle sys user, Postgres user, I think it's called. Because guess what? They have all the privileges, right? You can do whatever you want in there. So that's great for development and testing until you deploy it. And then they go like, well, now you're in a system where obviously you're not allowed to just drop random schemas or tables. So now your code breaks. It's like I see this constantly in my day work. Super, super bad habits to test this stuff with the admin user. Why do we do it? Because who knows how to create a user in the database and what privileges to grant. Well, the good news here with this container image is that on this Oracle containers, you can just create a new user, a new database user, with just saying with username. I call this database user test user, give it a password with password. That's it. All you have to do. So now, So now you have a new username password that you will use to execute your test against. Then the other thing that I do is, so when you look through the test here, you will see that we will test retrieving a country and make sure that we get a country back and print it out. And we will test inserting a country, a non-existing country, essentially. Now, in order for that to work, we need that table to exist. And ideally, given that we don't insert that same country here that we're trying to retrieve, we also need some starter set data or some data in that table, right? So you have to run some sort of pre-setup step. And what I found is that, what a lot of containers do, they offer you to mount a volume into the container, which allows you to run arbitrary scripts, or at least the images that I've provided. This was actually from a guy. This was a community contribution. I forgot now who did it, but it's like, yeah. Anyway, so my container image, I think Postgres MySQL can do this as well. You basically can point any directory you have to this folder container entry point in its DBD in the container. And then the container will look through that folder and search for any SQL or .sh files and execute them. And so in this case, we say, hey, we're passing in the setup.sh file. into this container. So what does the setup.sh file do? If we look here in resources, it doesn't really do anything other than pull some sample data from GitHub. I have some sample data on my GitHub. We can talk about this, and then basically installs this. So that's how we get our country table and actually countries in there. And then once that is executed, basically once the container is running, this is executed on container startup. We see here in the setup, we basically then get a connection to the database, right, with the Oracle container that we have up here, with that username that we have defined at the password, right, and the JDBC URL is given us from test containers. And then we run through these tests. And so if I hit play here now, we should see, we already saw that they passed before. What we should see here now is like test container spins up a new container, this Venzl free slim fast start, right? So here we go, it's starting. So this is talking now on my local laptop, in my case to Podman. So I've set up test containers to work with Podman, because don't ask me, I like Podman. I'm one of these guys. And so that's now spinning up the container in the background. So if we were to go, for example, over to the console and do Podman PS, we see here it is, right? There's this container that was just started by test containers, including the React container. So that container has been started up and our tests are all executed. So let's see what else we see, right? So we saw container is starting, container has been started, and then here's our URL to connect to, and then we are here already in test execution. So test whether country can be inserted, right? So we insert country XYZ, and then make sure that we actually get the country back here with the same ID. So that seems to have worked fine. The assertion went through, and then test whether we can get a country, in this case Austria, back from the table, and then print out the country. And indeed we see here we have the country information for Austria. So that's it. That's as simple as it is. So test containers allowed me to pull an image. In this case, the image was already pulled on my machine, but obviously we'll pull the image from Docker Hub or anywhere else. Then start up the container. Then thanks to the setup script, I got and this username password, I got my database in a state for testing. And then I just execute the tests. And then test containers will clean everything up for me. So super simple, super nice. Couple of rows in your Java, a couple of Java lines of code, and off you go.
Right. This is a great introduction. So, and then I like very much the idiom was copying the configuration files to your database. I would definitely use that to at least, like very often you use the database migration technology, like Liquid Base or something, for doing the migrations. But then eventually the amount of migrations gets like too large, and it becomes like a little bit of a burden, because like you start like going and inserting
takes forever, right?
Thousands of change sets into that. So I would use like this mountable file approach to seed like one of the snapshots, like a sort of like a backup or like a database dump file, and then from there just continue the migrations. We'll find the existing ones that were in the past, right, and they just apply maybe like dozens of them, right, and then I would update my dump file regularly with like a CI job or something. So this way I would get the best of both worlds, and my container startup will be still like in seconds rather than minutes. So I don't know how big was this image. So like Oracle 19C, we had a data point, one anecdote data point at 17 gigs.
Right now, so this image, let's see, is 4.8 gig. The slim fast start.
Right.
I know where you're going with this.
What? Sorry?
I know where you're going with this.
I'm not. I'm like, so, but this is the slim faster image. So this is the kind of sort of the slim image. Does Oracle container abstraction in the test containers module, would it work with a non-slim images if I would like to? Like how does the abstraction work?
So, you could use any kind of image that you wanted, right? If you wanted to just use the latest, I think all we would have to do is delete this, right? Let's see whether this works. And, by default, this would obviously now go to : latest. And now we see indeed it's starting to being pulled by test containers again. I don't have to do anything, right? So we just have to wait now until this is downloaded. Which might also my laptop, and let's see how this goes with intelligent live streaming, etc. and Podman running there. But I mean, it should finish in time.
So this would be the 20 gig Oracle image, right?
No, so actually no, this should be. Gosh, I forgot now.
You can go into Docker Hub. Like if you command click on the G Venzl Oracle free.
Yeah, I could hang on, but then let me open a browser window.
No, command click on it. Command click
this
on
one
it.
here?
Yeah. No? Oh my goodness.
No, doesn't show me anything.
Works for me.
Well, do you have like a plugin installed that I maybe don't have?
No, maybe it's an enterprise version of IDEA.
Yeah,
or maybe it only worked with latest, but it brings me to Docker Hub immediately. Well, we tried.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, exactly. I don't think I think it must be either a plugin or the enterprise edition. Yeah, I mean, we can see it here now, right? So it kind of pulled this, it actually downloaded it in like a little bit over a minute 15 seconds. And if we were to look again, the image would be there by now. What should be there by now? Oh no, hang on, pulling layer. Not quite done yet, sorry.
It's fine. You don't have to.
Anyway,
I think the compressed size for the latest is actually 1.4 gig. So it will uncompress it when it downloads the image for you, but like it's not too bad on a decent network, especially in CI, which is likely in the cloud. That might not be like a cloud-to-cloud pool is very, very fast. So talk to me a little bit about the fast start part of the tag. What does it mean?
Yeah, so when I started to put these images out there, I had it was an interesting kind of like two camps discussion out there. Like, it couldn't please everybody. So it's like there's the guys who want the smallest possible image out there. And then there's the guys who want the fastest possible startup time. And in order for making the image as small as possible, what I did is I basically gave you an image with just the Oracle software installed, and I compressed the database files down originally with zip and then with 7-zip afterwards to give you the smallest possible image size out there. And what happened is so people were really pleased. Actually, the actual slim image, let me just try to pull it because you kind of really got me going, The actual slim image should be somewhere around a gig, I think, or less than that even. And actually here we didn't even need to pull it because guess what? The fast start image is based on that image. Oh yeah, sorry, less than 2 gigs that it is, 1.8 gig. And people were really happy with that, right? And so it's kind of like people were always like, oh, can you give me something like the 300 megabytes? Well, no, not really, because, just the binary alone is already, the Oracle binary alone is already that size. So what I ended up doing is so there's 2 use cases that you have, right? So it's some people want the smallest possible image size on disk, which has always been somewhat of a why do you care if you happen to run a 50 terabyte database under it? And of course, the reason why you care is because, well, if you run local development and you only have a 500 SSD disk or something like that, well, of course, you don't want something that's 20 gig, right? It's even if you may not pull it every time, but you pull it once, it's 20 gig gone, right? So it's smaller is better. But then there was this other use case of hey, on my CI/CD environment where whatever this is, local or even in GitHub Actions, etc., where you run many tests, you don't want to every time you start up a container go through this unzip operation. It's really just like that, the unzip operation of those database files, to get the database up and running, right? Because that is on my laptop always about 16 seconds or so. And if you have like 20 tests, that just adds up. So it's like you pull the image once, but you run many containers off it, right? So it's like here, what you really want is fastest possible startup time, a second or two. And so this led to this kind of fast start variant. So it's like I introduced 3 image flavors to begin with, right? So it's an Oracle free full, which is Oracle database free as it comes, nothing removed. So you can extend that to whatever you want to do with it. Add to it, remove your own components, etc. It's the plain vanilla as you would get it, download it from the web and build a Docker image out of it. And then there's the latest where I said, hey, there's some components that probably, majority of people don't really use and don't really need. So let's start throwing them away. And then there's the slim where I go aggressive on image size, right? So where I say, okay, now let's basically toss everything away that is not necessarily needed for a relational JSON graph use case, so anything interaction with SQL. And a lot of people most of people use the slim image from what I can tell. So people are fine with that, right? And then was this thing of like, hey, but it takes a long time to start up a container. And so that is when I then introduced these fast start flavors for all 3 of these. So just -fast that will basically get you an image that's larger in size, but it has these database files extracted. And so therefore, when you spin up the container, all that's happening is starting the database. And that's like 3 seconds max, something like that in Oracle database free. And what you saw before is like it was also smart about basing the fast start image on the slim image. So therefore, we saw that this pull actually didn't do a pull here because all the layers were already there because it's the same layers that the fast start actually has, right? So it's like I take the slim image, just uncompress the data files on it, create 3 more layers, and there's your fast start image. So therefore, you actually under the covers are not using up additional storage, and your pull in this case is not really a pull anymore. It just it already has the layers down on disk anyway. I found out something really super interesting also about layers when I did GitHub Actions, and this is somewhat important. Like people naturally gravitate to the fast start images because it says fast start, so I want that image, right? So it's like, of course, I want the fast start. So for your laptop, that's perfectly fine, especially when you have the image down and they don't change it often. For GitHub Actions, I found out you're better off with the slim image. Why? Because Docker and Podman pull layers in parallel. And especially Podman pulls all layers in parallel, Docker by default 3. And they start also extracting them in parallel. And it turns out that the slim image, the smaller image size, or the 3 layers that are missing here, that are an additional 3 gig here, the pull size is faster, the pull and extract size is faster on GitHub Actions than the extract duration would be, or that the extract duration is in the slim image. So what I mean by that is like on GitHub Actions, when you pull a slim fast start, the additional 3 layers that you pulling these 3 layers will take you longer than extracting the compressed database files in the slim image. So therefore, your slim image on GitHub Actions is actually faster. So you can test this out, and you should test this out. It was one of those things that were completely unintuitive to me. But yeah, it's like, it's just because it downloads them, extracts them, and then starts up the container faster, extracts them, then extracts those database files, then it would take to download those 3 additional layers and extract them.
That's very, very cool. Can I show a little continuation of this demo?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, very good. So this is my screen. You can see the Testcontainers modules. Look, there is Oracle here, Oracle free if you want to.
Yay! Right? Thanks, Edu.
You get into the docs, into the Testcontainers Java that was just released, and you get the Gradle Maven coordinates that you can build and the basic example here. Right. So, but that is not what I wanted you to show, right? So you showed how you locally run this with Podman. My suggestion would be to try and use the Testcontainers Desktop application. Let me actually show it to you. It's a free application, and locally working with the Testcontainers-based setups is just absolutely a joy with it. It's a menu application, so it sits here for me, right? And there are a number of features that are specific for working with Testcontainers-based setups. So one of them, you can pick the runtime that you would like to use, and you have because there are no ARM images. Your MacBook, you're on the MacBook, right? Like you have an Intel Mac.
I still have an Intel Mac. Yeah.
Oh, very good. I have an M
M2, M1, depending which how old or young it is.
Yeah. M1 Mac. So this is Apple Silicon, right? So by default, this is I cannot run this. I need to run this via Rosetta, and then I don't know if that works or not. But my simple workaround is to enable Testcontainers Cloud, which will with Testcontainers Desktop I could just do this with one click. And then there is a like free compute quota that you get for like a monthly compute quota. But the point is, my container here will run in the cloud in a like dedicated provisioned VM, and this is the same project that you were actually working with. This is the same repository, so there are no cheating, and I can run this now on my Mac. So I can run this, and we can see that it will download. Oh, look. Still using Graal.
Oh, there we go.
Nice. Oracle, another Oracle technology here. And we would create the containers, and then they will run and start. And you can see that my desktop, my Docker environment is Testcontainers Cloud, which I enabled here. And then the tests pass, and the container starts in
no time.
I think it's like less than 15 seconds, I think. It's 13 seconds. The container starts, the schema gets provisioned in there. So it's like it's a decently sized machine. Let me actually try it with a Slim, because I didn't try it with a Slim. I hope this works as well.
Now we're curious, right?
Now we are curious. So first we will need to pull this image.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, we don't pull anything, right? Because all the layers are there. And then we start it, and the container is starting for the first time. This is where the extracting happens, right?
Right. Exactly.
Let's see. It still starts in the same amount of time. So the cloud VM that I get provisioned is running Linux. It's an Intel machine, so obviously the AMD Docker image would work there very easily. It would also give me the compatibility between my different environments if I would have the same environment in CI, for example. But there is no big difference for startup here, which is interesting, actually. So this is it. One thing that I wanted to show you here was the Testcontainers Desktop, because you didn't want to install it like before the stream.
Like 15 minutes before the stream. It's like, yes.
It's a testament how great it works, right? So one thing is, I can do things with containers. So one thing, I would freeze my container shutdown. So when I run my test, my container will not actually run and clean up by itself, right? Mm-hmm. And then it will give me the ability to work with my container and my Oracle database as if it was running locally. There are two things for this. Let me just wait 15 seconds to start. Showed me a notification on the other screen that my container was sort of frozen, right? So we can see the container is still running, the test is still running, and then I can see that, and I can also do a couple of things. I can, for example, get the logs of the container. You don't see it, but it comes in a browser like this. So if something goes wrong, this is an amazing way to actually interact with that, because I can always see the logs without doing like a Docker exec into the container to tail the logs. And I can also like do this thing where I can open the terminal into this container, right? So, and here, right, we are in the actual our image, right? So,
right, that's cool.
Right? And then here I can use, if I go back to my setup, right? If I use this command, I can maybe do things. And I'm in the Oracle database. Check this out. What do I remember? Select one from Dual. Dual was this was the Oracle way, right?
Hey, no, actually do select one semicolon.
Oh, right.
That's one thing that we have in 23C as well. Tiny one.
Oh, finally. The best feature of Oracle 23 free is that you can emit dual. No, it's
Yeah.
great. Like, so I can work with this normally with my container. It helps very much if I need to like sort of find the tables, see what data is in there. If anything breaks, like this is great. And even more than that, we have the concept of services there. So I can specify via a configuration file that any container by Testcontainers that runs gvenzl Oracle free, the container port inside the container will be mapped to a local port of a predefined value. So I don't want to do this in the code because it will like create conflicts sometimes on some situations, because there is only one hard port that we can bind on the host machine. But with the desktop application, I can soft proxy to whatever container is currently running for that. And I can use my tools to connect to my Oracle database via this standard fixed port. So if I have my database viewer or anything configured, I can use it with Testcontainers-based setup as if it was running locally, right? And I can do this on my Mac. So like Stake Zero and Alexandru, if you are tired of the Colima workaround, I would urge you to check out Testcontainers Cloud. It's great. It works. It's a good service.
Yeah, it's great.
Right.
No, definitely.
And then
also 1521 is obviously the default port for Oracle database. So a lot of tools expect that port to be there. So any kind of UI tool. So that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So with the desktop application, like I can pretend that my Oracle is running locally, and you can see like I use it with like a bunch of random tools that I'm that I'm expecting to work as locally. Specifically, like with the recent additions, for example, for Spring, where you can run your application is in the test mode, and it will provision the setup as if it was running the tests with Testcontainers. So like I can just run my app, and like it's great. It's great. I don't need to sell you. Like you just need to try as when you have maybe more confidence before the stream, right? So, but coming back, right? So coming back here, this is the Java example, right?
Yeah.
And then there are more to the programming languages landscape than just Java, right?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I know that there is a certain pull request that you authored in your free time, allegedly, to Testcontainers.
I did, believe it or not, I did.
You get too much free time. Oracle is kind to you.
That's actually interesting. My boss says the same thing.
No, so there is obviously the Testcontainers libraries are available in different languages, and then you chose the Python implementation to kind of sort of send a pull request about the module. We're working on figuring it out and merging it into the main lines. But can you talk a little bit about that experience? How hard was it? Like, why did you choose Python? And then, what does it do?
Yeah,
Is it like just a copy of the Java ones?
No, it's so I have to confess that although in my years ago I wrote mostly in Java, actually in the last couple of years I wrote a lot in Python. So somebody would actually put me into like, what's your main programming language? I'm not sure anymore whether I would just say Java or Python. And so so I had this open source project where I originally started this container, created this container for, right? It's a CSV command line tool to load. It's a command line tool to load CSV data into databases. I was fed up. There's a CSV file. I want it in the table. Why do I always have to go through 50 hoops to get this done? And I wrote it in Python because Python makes it just super simple to iterate through files. And, literally all I wanted is like, take the first row, that's your column names, take every other row, insert with a couple of optimizations, right? Python was super simple to do that. I wanted to know a little bit more about Python because it was on the upward trend. Obviously now, it's obviously a super popular language. And anyway, so I write a lot of Python code and or some Python code. And I was like, hey, like Oleg and Edu kind of, tell me how great Testcontainers is. And it's there for many languages. So it's like we showed you Java, but it's like, .NET, Python, Rust, Go. It's like every time I look on the website, it feels like another language is adding to it. And the Python one spotted my attention, obviously, right? I was like, hey, I'm writing this thing in Python. I want to write GitHub Actions for it, etc. Maybe I should just start using test containers for Python on my Mac to develop this stuff, right? And perhaps then in test containers, cloud GitHub Actions, etc. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, there's an Oracle database module for Python. Fantastic. Love it. But it's not my container or my image. And what can I say? It's like, it was like, I want my image. It's like, I literally wrote this image, created this image for this tool. I'm not going to start using another image. So I looked a little bit at it and I was like, the joy of open source, right? Everybody's welcome. Anybody can change. So I was like, hey, let me see how hard this would be to change. And it was actually not that hard at all, right? So it's like, I had very little exposure to test containers. I knew what it was. I knew how it worked, the concepts, but I had very little exposure to actual test containers code. But I was like, I understand Python, I understand Java. It's a GitHub repo. How hard can it be? And indeed, it wasn't very hard, right? You have clear instructions on there. There was already also a module there, to be fair, for Python back then. So I just went in there and was like, hey, let me see what happens if I were to change this to my Oracle image. And, it was a release candidate 1. So it's like, maybe there's still a chance to just change this all the way to my image before it even goes like sort of GA, right? Before there's a 1.0.0 out there. And yeah, I mean, as you can see on this pull request that you have up there, it's like it's 14 files changed, right? With some README files and other stuff. And all the CI tests have worked. And, I updated in the meantime the Python driver as well that it uses, the pin driver, so that it still gets easier. And so, yeah. It's like I'm super excited about this. So once we got that merged, you will basically have exactly the same experience that you have in Java with test containers for Oracle Database Free. You will have exactly the same experience for Python as well. So then we see what we get from there. It's like I really never ever write any .NET code, so don't look at me for that.
No single person can wield all the languages, and it takes a village for some things, right? But I think you mentioned a very important point to highlight here, right? There was a Java version of the module that is available. There was a previous version of the Python module that gives you this sort of the structure and everything. So we have all the blueprints for all the technologies, right? So if you're using Oracle and you're using primarily a different language ecosystem, and if you would like to contribute to open source, we'd love contributions to modules in other languages. It will probably make your life easier if you're using this for work purposes, and it will also help the community. And also the same way, if you were using other technologies and you would like to see a module for them to test them efficiently, then taking a blueprint from maybe an Oracle DB module and like basing your structure at least on that, or some tips and tricks, we'd love to see those contributions as well. And from our part, we'd love to help grow that ecosystem of modules further. And what I like about Python specifically is it, like you started, like it comes back into this trends question, right? Now, AI is a very hype thing, right? And then we know Python is very much one of the default languages for AI. So if you are doing an AI things and then you are looking at Oracle database and you would like to, like, I don't know, test or use the vector embeddings or whatever other database features that fancy your AI development, then just use the test containers Python module. Well, you can, it's open, the pull request is open, but we'll merge it, and then it's going to be a breeze to use that in your AI applications, which makes me very, very happy.
Yeah, and luckily the vector DB support, the vector data type support we're working on currently, so that will be when 23C goes GA and 3 will be updated. So, but then we should have the pull request done as well.
Yes.
So we'll all line up.
It will all line up. No, thank you so much. We're at time. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the insight, talking through very important points. If you are just watching the summary, right, use the Oracle container integration with test containers. use the Venzl images. They are a good thing. It's not a random hacker trying to mine Bitcoin on your machine. It's an actual Oracle free image container images. And we looked at some examples of the tests, and I showed you a little bit of Testcontainers Desktop. And specifically, if you're using Macs with Apple Silicon, you can try Testcontainers Cloud to overcome the infrastructure architecture incompatibilities that you can encounter otherwise. While Oracle is working on the images for ARM chips. Right. I don't think I forgot anything. Massive thanks to you, Gerald. This was great. Thank you for joining. Thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe to see the notifications about the next episodes being scheduled. Yeah, I love being with you here.
Thank you very much to everybody listening in, and for you for having me, Oleg.
Absolutely. Thank you.